So I think I'm going to apologize first and foremost for any nerves I have. My experiences on this court usually not involve me speaking. So if I'm shaking, if I'm nervous, the sweat would be something I've done on this court a lot, but everything else is all me. So I want to first and foremost thank everybody for being here. I also want to thank God because I'm going to talk about a lot that I've learned on this campus, and hopefully everybody can hear me, about what I've learned on this campus, but in reality, none of it happens without God and the faith that my parents have instilled in me. In terms of my parents, we've already clapped for them, but I also want to thank my mom and dad, Glenn and Linda, for making the trip. 2.5 hours from Dalton just to hear a lot of stuff they've probably already heard in passing before, and I couldn't be more appreciative. The last person I want to quickly thank is my wife, Mary. We had our second anniversary earlier this week. She was planning on being here, but between the anniversary, moving tomorrow, and a puppy that managed to get ringworm and pink eye last night, we decided it was the best for her to stay back. So the task that I was given here today was to talk about kind of some of the lessons and things that I learned on this campus, both on and off the court. The reality is that's a difficult task because I'm so much of who I am outside of my 9 to 5 because of this campus. I met friends like Alex Washington at this campus that stood with me at my wedding, and I know that I'm the man I am because of Augustana. It helped to mold me. But one of the first things I learned from Coach G the summer before starting on campus was the Viking rule. No excuses, you get it done. So I'm going to try to stay on task and do just that. When I arrived on campus, I was a shy 6'7", 170-pound kid. President Balls and Coach G may tell you 150 pounds, but I learned in law school is not what you know, is what you can prove. So I knew I wanted to major in history. I knew I wanted to succeed on the court. And otherwise, like most 18-year-olds, I didn't really know a whole lot. One of the first experiences that jumped out at me when thinking about talking to you guys this evening was an experience that happened in my media and identity class freshman year. That class was taught by Professor Dr. Wendy Hilton Moreau. And we were doing our introductions like we do in any class where you say where you're from, what you're majoring in, and she stopped me in my tracks. I got through Dalton, I played basketball, and she stopped me to say, hey, to say something else, talk more. And like I said, I was shy, so the last thing I wanted to do was say anything else. But she was commenting on my speaking voice. She wanted to tell me that, man, you have a great voice, you should be on the radio, you should come work at the Augustana radio station. So it kind of stuck with me, in an odd way, but it still resonates today. It was a lesson that a lot of students get on a campus like Augustana because the faculty care so much. But the lesson that I learned was when I talk, people are listening. Not just now, not just when I talk to federal judges before sentencing, or when I'm talking to senators and legislators today. They're listening all the time. It's important, and that's a lesson I learned here on this campus very early on. As I mentioned, I majored in history. I love history. It's one of the more probably dorkier things about me, plus being a mathlete in high school, but I enjoyed my time learning history here. But because of Augie's liberal arts education and curriculum, I took a lot of time taking some other classes that I wouldn't otherwise have taken. I took classes like art of listening, golf, badminton, but I spent a lot of time taking political science classes. I took every class in public policy that was offered at Augustana. I took classes about the budget, about politics, a class called Race, Wealth, and Politics. Those classes had nothing to do with what I did immediately following graduation. I spent 6 years, and I loved those 6 years, as a federal probation officer for the Southern District of Iowa. Those classes did prepare me for law school some, but in reality, they prepared me for 10 years after graduation. They prepared me for what I do every day today. They prepared me for conversations at the Capitol that start off in the morning talking about racial profiling, and where I talk about over lunch how we can get an air wing or a plane for the state patrol. And then in the afternoon, talking about new policy bills like should we text and drive in Iowa, or should people in the backseat wear their seatbelts. Those are classes that I took at Augie just because I liked them, because I enjoyed them, and in reality, I live that world every day, and I couldn't be more blessed for having been here to learn that information. Transition to the basketball court, and the lessons that I learned being a part of the men's basketball team here. One of the first ones occurred, and it's a requirement of every basketball player, at least it was, for Coach G and Coach Jesse, was the 2 mile. I'm not sure if everybody here has heard of the 2 mile amongst basketball players. If you ask anybody in the weight room right now, they know of the 2 mile. But when you first arrive on campus after a summer away, whether a freshman or a senior, you must run 2 miles for like me, 12 and a half minutes. Yeah, not fun. But what you learn with the 2 mile is that it's not so much the physicality, it's not so much the effort you put in training, it's what Coach G would always refer to as laps 6 and 7. That's the part where your body starts telling you what you can't do and your mind's saying it even louder. You can't do this. It's time to quit. You didn't train enough. You went out 2 nights before. What were you thinking? Your brain's telling you all of that while you're trying to get through that race in the amount of time. I was thankful and I was blessed to have made it every time, and my teammates made it every year. That's why we can start practice. But what I learned on that track is that laps 6 and 7 aren't just on the track out there. Laps 6 and 7 happen in life. They happen in my life. And I learned that when your brain starts telling you, hey, you gotta quit, you can keep going. Thinking of laps 6 and 7, what came to mind to me was the bar exam last year. I made an interesting choice of graduating law school in 2012 and decided to wait 6 years before sitting for the bar. I would not recommend that to anybody. Make your wife very angry over the summer because you can't do anything, but it's something I did. But I remember sitting in my car, the second day of the bar exam, eating my sandwich I had brought from home, reviewing my notes and thinking, man, why am I going back in here? I have a job, I have a house, like, what am I doing this for? But on that track out there, I had learned, I knew how to convince myself that I can do this. I've trained for it, I'm ready for it. This is just my mind trying to talk me out of something I know I can do. And that's a lesson that I don't know I don't know if I'm able to do without this college, without this program, without being at Augustana. The last story that I'll share with you, and I did bring these, I'm not really sure why, but it's something that I've shared with a lot of people in my life. I've shared it with coaches, I've shared it with bosses, in interviews for promotions. But it's a story that happened in the film room my junior year in the non-conference schedule. Coach G called a meeting before practice, kind of odd, but we all showed up, went in there, and there was a number written on the board. That number was 55. So we asked everybody in the room, hey, who do you guess this number means? Somebody said, oh, that's our defensive field goal percentage. Somebody else said, oh, that's our offensive field goal percentage. Nobody got it. And finally, Coach G says, that's what Chandler shoots from the free throw line. Anybody else want to guess why he's not staying after the practice? Anybody? Okay, let's go. End the meeting. So after I picked myself up off the floor from embarrassment, I had a few lessons that I had kind of learned that day. The first was simple. It was work ethic. You got to work for what you want. I didn't want to shoot that low. He probably could have just told me that I should have worked harder, but that's okay. Because if he hadn't done it that way, I wouldn't have that second lesson. It's, I would say, even more valuable today in my career. It's how to respond to critical feedback. So when I got to law school that first semester, it was rough. I didn't know you could get some of those grades and still be allowed to come back. But I wasn't mad. I didn't puff my chest out. I didn't blame myself. I didn't blame professors. I didn't blame anything. I said, okay, here's the critical feedback. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to go to work. My first job, I got my first performance review. Hey, you're doing good here. You're doing bad here. I didn't say, well, it's fine. I have 4 goods and 2 bads. I said, here are the bads. I'm going to put them behind my computer, and I'm going to go to work. That's the same methodology I take to any feedback I get. Last session, a bill that we wanted to pass this session, we didn't get it through. So all summer, all year, I've prepped, I'm ready. So I get back up there in January, I'm ready to succeed because of a lesson I learned with 2 numbers written on the board there. And that's something that I don't have, again, with all this campus. So if I was to give the kind of cliff notes, spark notes, which I don't know if that's still a thing that people use today, but the summary of the story of my time here at Augie is that I'm, again, not the person I am, 9 to 5 or otherwise, without this campus. And I know that the other alumni here, the students that step foot on this campus now or in the future will be the same. In fact, I can say that the person I was a year after college here, 10 years now, and 10 years from now is because of what I did on this campus and what I experienced and got to do. So, thank you.